Have you ever made a promise? A real one. Not the kind you make lightly, about calling someone back or finishing a chore, but the kind that carves itself into your soul. A vow that becomes the very air you breathe. I made such a promise. It was whispered in the sterile, antiseptic air of a hospital room, a secret pact between a dying woman and the cold, hard truth. It was a promise that would unravel a life built on lies. A promise that would ensure that he would pay for every last betrayal. This is the story of Elena. A story of love, of sickness, of a cruelty so profound it defies belief. And it's the story of what happens when a man, blinded by greed and a monstrous assumption, tries to write an ending, only to discover the pen was never in his hand. To understand the fall, you must first see the height. 5 years ago, Elena and Mark were the couple everyone admired. He was a charismatic real estate developer, all sharp suits and even sharper smiles. She was the heart of their home, an artist whose soul was as vibrant as the paintings that adorned their beautiful, custom-built house. From the outside, it was a perfect life. A golden cage, though Elena didn't yet know the bars existed. They lived in a stunning modern home, all glass and light, perched on a cliffside with a view that stole your breath. Elena had poured her soul into every detail. The sun-drenched studio where she painted, the sprawling garden she nurtured with her own hands, the kitchen where they shared laughter and wine. This wasn't just a house, it was a living scrapbook of their love, a testament to the life they had built together. But even the most beautiful cages have locks. And Mark, he held the key. He controlled the finances, dismissing Elena's concerns with a charming wave of his hand. Don't you worry your pretty head about it, my love. I'm the provider. You just focus on your art. And she, trusting the man she had vowed to spend her life with, believed him. She saw his controlling nature as protectiveness, his dismissals as strength. Oh, the lies we tell ourselves to preserve the beautiful picture frame, ignoring the rotten wall it hangs on. Then, the first crack appeared. A persistent cough. A fatigue that sleep couldn't cure. A series of doctor's visits that started with mild concern and quickly spiraled into a chilling, silent dread. The diagnosis, when it came, was a sucker punch to the universe. It was rare. It was aggressive. It was a battle against an invisible enemy, one that had already entrenched itself deep within her. Mark's reaction was strange. Not the devastating collapse of a man watching his world crumble. No. It was a cold, calculated stillness. He would sit in the hospital chair, his phone glowing in his hand, his fingers flying across the screen. "Business, my love," he'd say, without looking up. "The world doesn't stop, even for this." And Elena, in her medicated haze, her body racked with pain, would simply nod, a tiny, dying ember of doubt beginning to flicker in her heart. The doctors laid out a treatment plan. It was brutal. Chemotherapy, radiation, a grueling marathon of suffering with no guarantee of a finish line. But it was a chance. A slim, fragile thread of hope. And Elena, with a fire in her eyes that the sickness had not yet extinguished, grabbed onto it with both hands. "I will fight this," she whispered, her voice hoarse but firm. Mark squeezed her hand, but his eyes were already looking at the calendar on the wall, counting down the days. Hope is a stubborn weed. It grows even in the most barren of landscapes. Elena fought. She endured the nausea, the weakness, the loss of her beautiful hair. She clung to the image of her garden in the spring, of holding a paintbrush again. But as her body weakened, Mark's absences grew longer. "Emergency meetings," he'd say. "Critical deals that can't wait." One evening, Elena, feeling a rare surge of energy, decided to surprise him. She made her way slowly, painfully, to his home office to leave a note on his desk. A simple "I love you." That's when she saw it. His laptop was open, an email draft glaring on the screen. The subject line made her blood run cold: quiet listing, cliffside property. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird in a bony cage. With a trembling hand, she scrolled. There it was. Her home. Their home. Described as a prime asset soon to be vacated. Vacated. The word was so cold, so final. And then she saw the correspondence. Dozens of emails with a woman named Cassandra. They weren't just about real estate. They were filled with intimacies, with plans. Soon, my darling, Mark had written. As soon as the inevitable happens, we'll be free. The house will be ours, and we can start our real life. The inevitable. He had written off her life as an inconvenience. A delay. The world swam around Elena. She stumbled back to her room, the I love you note crumpled in her fist, a bitter, painful joke. The next day, she confronted him, her voice a fragile thread. Mark's mask didn't even slip. He was prepared. He knelt before her, his performance worthy of an award. My love, my foolish, beautiful love, he crooned, taking her hands. Those emails, they're taken out of context. Cassandra is a ruthless investor. I have to play her game. I'm selling the house, for you, for your medical bills. The treatments are expensive. I'm doing this for us, to secure our future. He was so convincing, his eyes so full of manufactured tears, that a part of her wanted to believe him. The ember of doubt was nearly smothered by his practiced lies. He promised her, swore on his life, that he would never leave her. That they were in this together. And in her weakness, in her desperate need to believe in the man she once loved, she let herself be convinced. It was a temporary madness, he said. A business necessity. She chose to believe the beautiful lie, because the ugly truth was too monstrous to face. But a lie, no matter how beautifully framed, is still a lie. And it was about to shatter into a million pieces. A week later, Elena was resting in her studio, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. Her phone, which she thought she'd lost, had slipped behind the sofa. As she reached for it, her finger accidentally pressed the screen, activating a voice recording app she sometimes used for painting ideas. And then, she heard it. His voice. Mark's voice, but stripped of all its false sweetness. It was cold, hard, and utterly merciless. He was on the phone, just outside the studio window, thinking he was alone. Narrator, as Mark, cold and dismissive. Stop worrying, Cassandra. The paperwork is handled. I have her power of attorney. She's too weak, too confused to know what she's signing. The doctor confirmed it yesterday. The latest scans, it's everywhere. She's terminal. She won't live until the new year. I'm telling you, by January, the house will be sold, the money will be ours, and this chapter will be over. The phone clattered from Elena's numb fingers. She won't live until the new year. The words echoed in the silent room, each one a shard of ice piercing her heart. This wasn't a business strategy. This was a death sentence, delivered not by a doctor, but by the man who had vowed to cherish her in sickness and in health. He wasn't just betraying her, he was counting down the days until her death. He had sold their shared dream, the home she loved, from under her dying body. A strange calm descended upon her. The pain, the fear, the weakness, it all melted away, replaced by a cold, clear, and terrifying focus. The dying ember of doubt in her heart didn't just reignite, it exploded into an inferno of pure, unadulterated resolve. He thought her story ended with the turning of the year. He was wrong. Her story was just beginning. And the next chapter would be written by her. In that moment, Elena made her promise. Not aloud, but in the silent, steel-forged core of her being. She promised herself that Mark would not get away with this. She promised that he would face the consequences of every lie, every stolen moment, every ounce of pain. He had planned for her end. Now, she would plan for his. Section 4, The Ghost in the Machine. 34:00, 46:00. Narrator. And so, Elena began her greatest performance. She became the ghost of the woman she once was. When Mark was around, she leaned into the role of the frail, fading wife. She let her voice tremble. She pretended to be more confused, more medicated than she was. She played the part he had written for her to perfection. But behind the scenes, a different woman was at work. A woman with a mind as sharp as a scalpel and a will of tempered steel. Her first move was to call upon an old, almost forgotten ally. His name was Arthur, a reclusive, brilliant tech wizard she had known in college, before Mark, before this entire life. He was a man who valued truth and despised deception. She reached out with a simple, desperate email. And he responded. Using a hidden tablet and a secure connection Arthur set up, Elena began her reconnaissance. She couldn't confront Mark directly. She needed evidence. Ironclad, undeniable proof of his conspiracy. She remembered Mark's arrogance, his habit of using the same simple password for everything, a combination of his birthday and the word king. With Arthur's guidance guiding her from the digital shadows, she gained access. It was a treasure trove of treachery. She found the secret bank account in the Cayman Islands, where the proceeds from the house sale were meant to go. She found the signed purchase agreement for the house, dated for a swift closing on January 15th. And she found the emails. Oh, the emails. They were more damning than she could have ever imagined. They detailed not just the sale, but a scheme to funnel money from their joint business, money that should have been paying for her treatments. He wasn't just waiting for her to die, he was actively financing his new life with resources meant to save her. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. Hidden in a folder labeled Old Taxes, she found scanned documents for a life insurance policy. A massive, multi-million-dollar policy, taken out on her life just 6 months before her diagnosis. And Mark was the sole beneficiary. The pieces of his monstrous puzzle clicked into place. The dismissals of her early symptoms. The business trips that coincided with critical doctor's appointments. It wasn't just neglect. It was a calculated plan. He had seen her sickness not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. A financial windfall. Her life had a price tag, and he couldn't wait to collect. Elena sat in the dark, the glow of the tablet illuminating her determined face. The hurt was gone. All that remained was a cold, clear purpose. She had the evidence. Now, she needed a plan. A revenge not of violence, but of absolute, devastating exposure. She would use his own weapons, deceit, greed, and paperwork against him. She would turn his perfect future into ash. New Year's Eve arrived. The world was celebrating new beginnings, but in the glass house on the cliff, a final act was being staged. Mark was practically buzzing with a grotesque, suppressed excitement. He was already packing his personal items, his mind clearly on a beach in Bali with Cassandra. He treated Elena with a condescending kindness, like a nurse tending to a patient who was already gone. "Don't worry about a thing, Elena," he said, pouring himself a generous glass of whiskey. "I have everything under control." Elena, wrapped in her shawl, gave him a weak, ghostly smile. "I know you do, Mark." And for the first time, she meant it. She knew exactly what he had under control. And she was about to take that control away. Her plan was set in motion. With Arthur's help, she had created a digital package, a file containing every email, every financial record, every damning piece of evidence. It was attached to an email, scheduled to be sent at the stroke of midnight. The recipients. Their entire family, all their mutual friends, Mark's business partners, and most importantly, the district attorney's office and the Securities and Exchange Commission. As the countdown to midnight began on the television, Mark's phone started to ring. He ignored it, smiling at Elena. "Probably just well wishes," he smirked. Then another call. And another. His smile began to falter. A text message flashed on his screen from Cassandra. "What have you done?" "My phone is exploding." Confused, he opened his email. And the color drained from his face. There it was. The email from Elena. The subject line, "The last will and testament of Elena Rossi, and the crimes of Mark Rossi." He looked at her, his eyes wide with a mixture of horror and disbelief. The frail, dying woman was gone. In her place sat a queen on her throne, her eyes burning with a fierce, unyielding light. What is this?" he stammered, his voice a broken thing. On the television, the crowd roared. 10, 9, 8. "It's the truth, Mark," Elena said, her voice strong and clear, a sound he hadn't heard in months. "It's the story you tried to write. But you forgot, you're not the author." 7, 6, 5. He scrambled, trying to delete the email, to call someone, to stop the inevitable. But it was like trying to hold back the tide. The evidence was already in the hands of the law. His reputation, his business, his future with Cassandra, it was all evaporating before his eyes. 4, 3, 2. You were supposed to. He couldn't even finish the sentence. 1. Happy New Year. Fireworks exploded over the city, painting the sky in brilliant, celebratory colors. Inside the house, there was only a profound, ringing silence. Mark stood frozen, a statue of shame and exposed greed. The clock had struck midnight. The new year had come. And Elena was still very much alive. The fallout was swift and merciless, just as Elena had intended. Mark's world collapsed in a matter of days. The email had done its work perfectly. His business partners, horrified by the fraud and the sheer inhumanity of his actions, immediately severed ties and launched lawsuits to recover their funds. The DA's office, armed with the evidence, opened investigations into the insurance fraud and the financial embezzlement. Cassandra, exposed as the accomplice, was also facing legal repercussions and a tidal wave of public scorn. She turned on Mark in an instant, providing more details to the authorities in a desperate attempt to save herself. The love they shared was revealed for what it always was, a sordid partnership of greed. The sale of the house was, of course, immediately voided. The property, the scene of the crime, was frozen by the courts. Mark was left with nothing. No money, no reputation, no future. He was a ghost, haunted by the consequences of his own actions. But what of Elena? As the legal wheels began to turn, a strange thing happened. Freed from the immense psychological weight of Mark's betrayal, freed from the fight to maintain a lie, her body began to respond. The fire of her will to live, once focused solely on revenge, now turned inward, fueling her fight against the disease. With the stolen funds recovered and the house back in her name, she had the resources to pursue a groundbreaking, experimental treatment abroad. She sold the glass house on the cliff, it held too many ghosts, and used the money to save her own life. A year later, Elena was in remission. The cancer was not gone, but it was in retreat, a managed enemy. She lived in a small, sunny apartment by the sea, her walls adorned with new, vibrant paintings. She had found a peace she never thought possible. She was no longer the victim, the betrayed wife, the dying woman. She was a survivor. An architect of her own destiny. One afternoon, she saw a news alert on her phone. Mark Rossi had been found guilty on multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to a long, long time in a place with no views, no luxury, and no escape. She felt nothing. No triumph. No schadenfreude. Just a quiet, final closing of a terrible chapter. He was finally, truly, gone from her life. Section 7. The Moral, a Final Reflection. 1:08:00:1:10:00+. Narrator, softer, reflective tone. So, what is the lesson in Elena's story? Is it that revenge is a dish best served cold? Perhaps. But I think it's something deeper. Something more profound. Elena's story teaches us that the human spirit is the most powerful force on this earth. It can be bent. It can be bruised. It can be betrayed in the most intimate ways imaginable. But it cannot be broken, unless we surrender. Mark's greatest sin was not his greed. It was his arrogance. He assumed he knew the ending. He underestimated the strength of a woman who had nothing left to lose but her own dignity. He forgot that when you push a person to the very edge of existence, you leave them with only two choices: to fall into the abyss, or to turn around and fight with a fury you never knew you possessed. Elena's revenge was not about hurting him. It was about reclaiming her power. It was about ensuring that her final days, however many there were, would be lived on her terms, defined by her truth, and not by his lies. Her story is a testament to the resilience of hope. And a stark warning to those who would prey on the vulnerable: be careful who you bet against. Because sometimes, the person you count out is the one who is just beginning to fight. The one who will not just live to see the new year, but will own it. Outro music begins, slow and poignant. Narrator. Remember, the wheels of justice may turn slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. And sometimes, they are set in motion by the quiet, determined whisper of a promise made in the dark. Thank you for listening.